Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we finally have from Sufjan Stevens Javelin. You ever have that sinking feeling going into a project where you see just an avalanche of critical acclaim and you hear all the buzz surrounding the very emotional circumstances that led up into the album that are so heart-wrenching that you know that it's an inescapable part of the experience, but you've also been listening to the project multiple times since it's been dropped and it's just not really clicking? Yeah, it feels like it's the second time in a row for me for Sufjan Stevens. I didn't fully click with the Ascension, and while I think this is better, I'm just not as overwhelmed by the emotion that has so many calling this one of the best and most beautiful albums of 2023. Now again, it is an improvement on the Ascension. On length and hooks alone, it's a more compelling listen, with probably the easiest first comparison being to the intimate, heartbroken acoustic and piano-backed folk of Carrie and Lowell, but with some Age of Odds electronic textures enmeshed into all the glittery theatricality, complete with the flutes, the horns, the soft strings, the delicate bells, and a lot of backing choirs, all juxtaposed against Sufjan Stevens' soft-spoken, quavering delivery for maximum skyward yearning, sincere to an absolute fault. Now look, that's the sort of thing that should win me over time and time again, but if you pay attention to the details and you notice how much of the organic warmth and low-end body, especially in the guitars, have just been sanded away to feel so prim and polished, and considering that I'm now in the minority who doesn't think the Age of Odds works, the electronic touches early on feel very clunky and awkwardly blended, certainly not merging well with how overpoweringly twee and precious it all feels. Compare this to Michigan or Carrie and Lowell. There was that supple, homespun foundation that was so inviting, or it was so spare and intimate that any broader flourishes, they were combined to subtler atmospheric touches. Whereas here, with every single choral overdub, it starts feeling kind of saccharine, a little cloying. Now, this is an aesthetic line that Sufjan Stevens has trod before. It's often blurry, even on this album. Sometimes it's just the melody or crescendo that works for cuts like Shit Talk or My Little Red Fox, where a similar progression will not work elsewhere. But I also know that a lot of the same palette that Sufjan Stevens is working with, it's getting a pass here when it's not that far removed from what's been condemned in similar glittery tones in modern indie music. Or more specifically, when the same maximalist tactics are used in worship music and are laughed right the hell out of the room. Now, the excuse often being made is that Sufjan Stevens is such a good writer and that his fragile delivery can sell so much and so well that it doesn't really matter. And I'm gonna kind of push back on both of it. First, because when you don't have that warmer, organic foundation to support the voice, every break in his vocals juxtaposed to the crystal clear choirs, it doesn't quite click for me. And secondly, Sufjan Stevens' pivot towards more stark, declarative statements in his writing that are being heralded as being so raw, it started on the Ascension, and I'm even less sure of them now. Now, part of this is tied to the very real tragedy of the loss of Sufjan Stevens' partner, Evans Richardson, of which the opener, Goodbye Evergreen, explores some of that heartbreak. But this is not an album focused on that. It's less of an album exploring grief so much as a celebration of Richardson's complicated life, and the desperate prayer that Stevens can find such an ecstatic love connection again. And I use the word ecstatic deliberately here, because where the Christian subtext was flickering along the past couple albums, now it's just text for multiple songs here. And it got kind of distracting for me, because as much as Javelin wants to feel so all-encompassing and euphoric, it's also balanced out by Sufjan Stevens' overpowering angst, which might amplify some of the stakes, but not only clashes oddly with the tone and orchestration of the album, but also feels like weird framing of any sense of divine relief, like an increasingly detached escape that can feel emotionally true, but kind of unreal, not helped by leaving any queer coding in the subtext. I don't know. This is the sort of project that I get why it works for its target audience. It's not surprising coming from Sufjan Stevens at all, and I will argue it is good if several steps away from his best. But that word Catholic, it's rooted in terms about universality, and for as much as Javelin strives for that all-encompassing feeling with grand swings of beautiful emotion, for me it only connects in the moments where the humanity is more pronounced than the higher swings for the angels, not quite the Field of Dreams. In other words, yes, it is quite good, I get the hype, but when compared to what Sufjan Stevens has done in the past and all the critical acclaim, for me, this Javelin just falls a little short. That's all. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more reviews, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share this around. I know for a fact it's probably going to piss some folks off because Sufjan Stevens and the critical acclaim this thing's received is mountainous. I know I'm setting myself against the grain here, but I've got contentious opinions about Sufjan for years now. This is no exception. Yeah, if you guys love it, I get it. It just did not click for me as strongly. And in the spirit of actually trying to be all-encompassing and welcoming of all points of view, maybe you don't lose your shit down in the comments. All I'm saying. Beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. If you want to get projects on my schedule so I can get projects like this earlier, link to my Patreon's right over there. And as always, I'm Mark. You're watching Spectrum Pulse. I'll see you next time.